Happy Halloween! That's right, it's Halloween time. One of the greatest times of the year. Drinking my Black Label, as I'm known to do from time to time. And it's a nice afternoon. A little hungover from some festivities the night before, but it's nothing that, you can't just put on a hat and fucking turn on the video and talk about some albums that you lived with for a very long time. So it ain't no thing. This is easy talking about Ozzy. 80s Ozzy. Originally I was gonna do a Rankorama for Black Sabbath for the Halloween special, because I did the Black Sabbath Halloween special last year, and I had Blueberry. Unfortunately, Blueberry couldn't make it. He's in another state right now. I'm in California. Blueberry's in my Florida place, and I forgot to bring him. Oh my God, I forgot to bring Blueberry here. So he's pissed off, but I'm gonna make amends. I will next year definitely make sure Blueberry's with me Halloween time, because that's when Blueberry should be with you, is when it's Halloween time. And that's when we'll do the Black Sabbath Rankorama for Halloween. We'll do that next Halloween, so look forward to that. So in the meantime, I had to slap together some kind of half-ass thing real quick and say, hey, what's good for Halloween that I can do real quick that's not the Black Sabbath Blueberry Halloween special? And I said, hey, how about solo Ozzy? That's right, I said it. I said it out loud to myself, because it's fucking crazy. I talk to myself. I shouldn't do that. Scratch that. I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to you people who want to hear me talk about what I think about 80s Ozzy. That's the best solo Ozzy there is to talk about. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. That's really all I need to talk about with Ozzy. In my opinion, this is 80s stuff, because that's his best solo stuff. And it makes sense, that Ozzy always has that kind of vibe that fits with Halloween, and a lot of these songs, especially an album like Bark at the Moon, that's a great Halloween album. So I was like, hey, let's do it. Let's do Ozzy, man. Let's do Ozzy for Halloween. And I got into Ozzy before I got into Black Sabbath. I was a child of the 80s, so that makes sense. I knew who Ozzy Osbourne was before I knew who Black Sabbath was. And the very first Ozzy Osbourne album I got was I believe I probably got this in 89 or 90. I got Tribute because on Headbangers Ball, I saw that live version of Crazy Train that they had a video for. They used to show that video quite a bit on Headbangers Ball. That probably was the first Ozzy Osbourne song I ever heard, was that live version of Crazy Train from that video. At this point, I was already into stuff like Metallica and Testament, and I was getting into a lot of different kinds of music and a lot of different kinds of rock music, and man, it just hit me. That fucking song, Crazy Train. It's Crazy Train. So yeah, I heard Crazy Train, and I'm a young lad, and I was like, yeah, this is an awesome, hard rocking, kick-ass song. And I got Tribute, because Tribute, I think it was a Columbia House scam. It was on one of my Columbia House scams. I got the Tribute album on CD, the Randy Rhoads Tribute, and that pretty much it has all the best songs from the first two solo albums, and then a couple Sabbath standards at the end, like they do Iron Man and Children of the Grave and Paranoid. And those were the first times I heard those Sabbath songs. That was my introduction to Sabbath, was those three songs at the end of Tribute. As I talked about in my Black Sabbath videos, I didn't really get really into Sabbath until the late 90s, early 2000s. That's when I really started buying their albums, and that's also when it was subsequent to that I really got into the solo Ozzy stuff, because really, I just listened to Tribute. That was it. I kind of thought Tribute, that kind of sums up Ozzy. When I'm in an Ozzy mood, I'll listen to Tribute, because it had the best songs from the first two albums, and it seemed kind of definitive to me. It was so solid and so perfect that I thought, that covers Ozzy. I was wrong. I should have got his solo albums. Definitely should have got Diary of a Madman. Did not know. I apologize to my younger past self that I didn't hook my younger past self up with Diary of a Madman sooner. With the exception of Tribute, I didn't really start getting his solo albums till the early 2000s. And I liked all the singles I heard from No More Tears, but for whatever reason, I didn't buy that album. I think I borrowed it a couple times. So I think I borrowed it, and I liked it, but there was some filler on that album, and it didn't really, even though I liked it, it didn't make me want to go and get his solo stuff. I thought Tribute was better. And I was right, Tribute is better. So I was like, I'll just stick with Tribute. But then in the 2000s, I did the deep dive. After doing the Sabbath deep dive, and getting into Dio and stuff like that, the inevitable happened that I started listening and started getting those classic solo Ozzy albums. And now I have every album of his from the first album, Blizzard of Oz, up to Osmosis. I don't fuck with anything after that. If you like his later solo stuff, hey, more power to you. I'm just not into it. I'm not even really into Osmosis. I only like one song on it, Perry Mason. That's it. So it's pretty much a Perry Mason maxi single as far as I'm concerned. And I like No More Tears. There's some filler on it, but I like the singles, even the ballads. I think it's a solid melodic 80s kind of metal album released in the early 90s. And, Lemmy wrote a lot of the songs on that album. And hey, I like it. It's a good album. But technically, it's not part of the 80s, even though I kind of feel like it ends that era. But it's technically not part of the 80s, so we're not talking about No More Tears. I'm going to keep this just the 80s, all right? Just the 80s, party time. Let's get to it. All right. So 1980, which I think is the greatest year of music. I was just like a toddler, so, I wasn't really paying attention to anything except for, I don't know, like Mickey Mouse Disco and like the Star Wars soundtrack or something. I was not aware that the greatest year music was happening at that time. I was listening to like Donald Duck and shit. I didn't know. But I would go back now in a time machine and tell little toddler Edwin, hey, this is the best year in music. Stop listening to this kiddie shit and listen to fucking Ace of Spades. Be a cool toddler, man. Not a lame toddler listening to your Mickey Mouse bullshit. Listen to some fucking metal. That's what I would tell that kid. And then my mom would chase this weird, swarthy guy that came in a time machine and was fucking with her child. As she should. Good job, Mom. Chase that fucking weird guy from the future that's fucking with your kid. That's the right thing to do. Anyway, I digress. So, greatest year of music. 1980, fucking Iron Maiden's first album. The first solo Ozzy album. Heaven and Hell. Women and Children First. Back in Black. Ace of Spades. Come on. This is like the peak new wave of British heavy metal. 1980, British Steel. Of course 1980 is the greatest year in music. Don't even act like it's not. There's no year that's better than 1980. 1980 is the greatest year, especially the greatest year in heavy metal. But being that heavy metal is the greatest music ever, that means it's the greatest year in music, period. Science. And here we go with not the greatest Ozzy album, in my opinion, but it is great, and I do love it. It's my third favorite. My third favorite is 1980's Blizzard of Oz. Blizzard of Oz. I read that originally they were thinking of calling the band Blizzard of Oz, and it was going to be a band. But then him and Sharon started like, nah, fuck it. Well, should be a solo thing. Should be Ozzy Osbourne. We'll get more money that way. So it was a solo act. Even though when they first put together the band of Randy Rhoads, they were thinking of it as a band. They rethought that pretty quickly. And as a result, Blizzard of Oz became the first solo album from Ozzy Osbourne. You guys all know, if you're watching this video, you all know about Bob Daisley and how he got fucked over on the writing credits and the bass parts got taken out by Sharon years later and all that stuff. But then they got put back in. They got put back in after they took them out. You all know about that stuff. So I'm not going to talk about all that. I'm just going to talk about what I think of this album. I've heard some people complain about the production, that they think it has a shit production. It's definitely not as good as Diary of a Madman. Well, I mean, all around, I'll just tell you right now, I don't think it's as good as Diary of a Madman. But production-wise, too, yeah, that has a better production. It's a little hot, I guess. I can hear, it sounds a little hot, some of the tracks on it. But it doesn't bother me. Generally speaking, I like productions that a lot of people think are shitty. It's kind of a thing of mine. I like a wonky production. I think it has a kind of character to it, And I think this production, it has a real 1980s kind of hot, kind of like the amplifiers are kind of burning up kind of vibe, sound to it. And I dig it. I dig the sound of the album. I love the studio version of Crazy Train. I like much better than that live version. The live version that got me into it. And hey, that sounds great. That sounds great. And I will talk about Tribute and Ozzy Live when we get to that, because I am going to talk about the live albums too from this period. But no, this studio version of Crazy Train, it's a hot track. I love the way it sounds. The guitar tone, Randy Rhoads, man, he deserves all the respect and admiration he gets. I know it was a fleeting moment. He's only on these 2 albums and 1 live album, and then he was gone way too soon. But let me tell you something, it's not hype. This guy was like Eddie Van Halen. He was an innovator, So much, just listen to like George Lynch and even years later, Zakk Wylde, all these guys, they took so much from Randy Rhoads, Randy Rhoads was different. Like, yeah, he took a little from Eddie Van Halen, especially, I would say, solo-wise a little, but those like jagged chords that he plays during the verses and stuff, that was a very new kind of unique sound, and it really defined the majority of 80s metal and hard rock. So he's a very important guitarist. In such a short time, he created such a distinct sound. And, Ozzy was always great at getting great guitarists, but out of the gate, he got his best one. To me, after Tony Iommi, he's the fucking GOAT. Can't do better than Tony Iommi, in my opinion, when it comes to guitarists that played with Ozzy Osbourne. But if we're talking his solo career, fucking easily Randy. Easily Randy. Randy Rhoads. He was a young fucking genius, and it was just so sad what happened. So yeah, Randy, Gone Too Soon. Amazing from I Don't Know. Great song, great opener, Crazy Train, great second track. Does what a second track should do. And we'll talk more about that when we get to Barking the Moon. Goodbye to Romance. Don't like it. Yeah, this is why this album's actually number 3 on my list. It's not a perfect album. It's a great debut, but it's not a perfect debut in my opinion. Goodbye to Romance is kind of... Ozzy sings ballads well if they're like dark ballads, kind of melancholy ballads with atmosphere, and even stuff like Changes and stuff. If there's a certain kind of melancholy atmosphere, I think Ozzy can pull off a ballad. But when it's a little more overtly schmaltzy, a little more of a cornball kind of ballad, I don't think, Alice Cooper can do ballads like that. He has a beautiful crooning voice. So Alice Cooper can do a straight up kind of cornball, hard on sleeve ballad, and he does it really well. I don't think Ozzy does. Ozzy only does kind of more dark atmospheric ballads well. I don't think his voice works for this more overtly sentimental kind of ballad. And Goodbye to Romance is like that. And I think the music's just, it's all right. It's all right. It's definitely not as awesome as the first 2 tracks, and it's not a great ballad, in my opinion. I like it's a nice little acoustic interlude, shows that Randy Rhoads, could do more than just the electric stuff. Suicide Solution. Wine is fine, whiskey is quicker. Badass song. Suicide Solution, my favorite song on the album. Has a AC/DC kind of groove. Said to be a tribute and lament for Bon Scott, who, unfortunately died by drinking, and that's why I will abstain from drinking my whiskey while I'm talking about this song out of respect to Bon Scott. But that's how he lived, and he wouldn't have lived any other way. That's why AC/DC, why they did a tribute to him, it was have a drink on me. They weren't maudlin about that because they knew Bon would have been like, fair enough. That's how he lived. What are you going to do? And, not everyone's got to stop drinking just because he had one night where, he drank too much and slept in the wrong position in a car. That shit happens. It's sad. It's tragic. But, Bon wouldn't want the world to stop partying and rocking because of it. That's the kind of guy he was, And Ozzy, likewise, he recognized it, but he didn't stop partying, as we know. He was still partying pretty hard. But that doesn't mean that we don't take a moment of silence and respect for the people that fall, the people that didn't survive the partying, sadly. And Bon was one of them. And he's one of my favorite singers of all time. So Ozzy doing this tribute to him, it's an amazing song. And it's both tragic and kick-ass at the same time, much like Bon Scott was. And god damn, it's just some of the greatest guitar work you will ever hear in your fucking life. Randy Rhoads fucking shreds and destroys all over the song. It's even better live, and this version kicks ass, so that's saying a lot. Love it. Favorite song on the album. Probably my second favorite song on the album is the next one, Mr. Crowley. Mr. Crowley. Love it. Love the synthesizers, those fat synthesizers. I love it. It's a great Halloween song about Aleister Crowley, black magic dude. Jimmy Page was very into. I was very into it too. I read a lot of Aleister Crowley stuff. Good stuff. Hey, it doesn't hurt to have a little black magic on your side. I got a little black magic altar back there. I just dabble. I dabble in white magic too. I do both. You gotta mix them both. If you do too much of one, it's not a good thing. So, Mr. Crowley, great song. Great Halloween song. Awesome song. Always put on a Halloween playlist. I love Mr. Crowley. No Bone Movies. Cool song. I dig it. I don't understand why Ozzy doesn't want to go see a fucking porno film. But, why he's saying no bone movies. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm misinterpreting the lyrics. I know that's slang for a porn film, but he's saying no bone movies. He's not saying yes bone movies. He's saying no. So like he doesn't want to see them. I don't know. Come on, Ozzy. It's rock and roll. Go see some people fucking. What's wrong with that? Anyway, Revelation Mother Earth. I like the live version. This version, it's a little too heavy-handed for me. To me, they do a song kind of similar much better on the next album. But yeah, it's just a little too over the top, and it's like it's a little try hard. I find this song to be a little try hard, and this is another reason why this album gets dropped down to 3. I'm not in love with this song. Steal Away the Night. I like that song a lot. I think it's stupid that the night's in parentheses. There's no grammatical reason for that, because in the song they just say steal away the night like a sentence. So I don't think they totally understand how parentheses should be used or why. But anyway, so steal away the night. Yeah, it's a great rockin' tune. I love it. This is actually a really underrated gem. And this almost sounds a little bit like a Dio era Black Sabbath song. I really like it a lot, and I think it's a great way to end the album. Just good rockin' tune, no nonsense. I dig it. And I really love this album, even though there's like only 2 songs that knock it down a little bit for me. But it's still a great album, great debut. Ozzy really fucking demonstrates how he is going to be a solo artist to reckon with. That's the statement that Blizzard of Oz is. And then you know what he did after that? He doubled down and recorded his greatest album, his greatest solo album, greatest thing he did outside of Black Sabbath, in my opinion, and I think a lot of other people's opinions. Diary of a Madman, 1981. Written and recorded just months after the other album, man. That's how bands used to do it back in the day. They didn't fuck around for like 14 years to make an album, like some people. Axl Rose. No, they fucking knocked out shit. Diary of a Madman. It's a masterpiece. Not one song I don't love on this album. Love. Love it. Yeah. Come on. Over the Mountain kicks in. Fucking awesome opener. So badass. Everything sounds great on this album. Production's punchy, cleaner but raw at the same time. Still raw, still heavy, punchy as hell. Love the sound. You could just tell the band is tight. The band is really tight on this. Randy's taking his shit to another level. Ozzy's singing's better. Everything's awesome. The songwriting's stronger. Everything. It's essentially the last album done again, but even better. Over the Mountain's awesome. Flying High Again. The ultimate 80s Ozzy party song. You can't get a better 80s Ozzy party song than Flying High Again. And this song never gets old for me. It's never played out. It's always party time. You know, you want to get drunk and high when you hear this fucking song. You want to rip it up and fuck shit up when you hear this song on. Just fucking immediately as those guitar chords hit, this fucking swagger, groove, one of the greatest songs of all goddamn time. Should be the national anthem if we lived in a cool world where people want it to be awesome all the time. But no, we don't. But a few of you get it. It's my fucking national anthem. Flying High Again. Woo! You Can't Kill Rock and Roll. Favorite song on the album. Yeah, favorite song on the album. I love You Can't Kill Rock and Roll. In fact, my favorite Ozzy solo song, period. That's right. You Can't Kill Rock and Roll is my favorite Ozzy Osbourne song outside of Black Sabbath. And I've heard this be said before. That's kind of weird. That's kind of a ballad. It starts off kind of like a ballad. You know, having the words rock and roll and a ballad be kind of together. It's a little weird, but I don't know. It works. To me, it works. It's like a spiritual hymn. It's a spiritual hymn to rock and roll. It's soulful. It's majestic. It's got pageantry. It's got all the things I love about a melodic hard rock or heavy metal song from the 80s. And the way it builds and it's rich. It moves me. This song, you might think it's funny, but You Can't Kill Rock and Roll moves me. I find it very inspiring. It's like, you can't kill rock and roll. You can't kill this music. You can't kill the spirit. While you're living, you got to keep on living. You know, there's down times, but you can keep picking yourself up. And that's the thing I love about so much 80s rock and metal, especially from the first half. It inspires you to keep on moving and keep on rocking. And You Can't Kill Rock and Roll. It's a beautiful song. I think it's a fucking masterpiece. That's right. Believer, another great song. Dark, groovy, love that bass line. Fucking Bob Daisley. His bass work is amazing on this album. That's why when fucking Sharon took out his bass work to try to screw him out of money, they took his bass out of it in this later remix version. I would not pay for that shit. I was like, fuck you. I'm not buying Diary of a Madman without fucking Bob Daisley playing on it. Luckily, they did another re-release. I think it was the 30th anniversary edition. It was just a remastered version of the original mix original mix, and Bob Daisley was put back in there with his amazing bass lines, and it sounds amazing. I bought that copy. Sounds great. Great remaster. Not as brick-walled as a shitty remix that they did a few years before that. And the bass lines are great. I love Believer. Great song. Little Dolls. Oh, talk about fucking bass lines. Bob Daisley's bass line's fucking sick on this song. Listen to it. Listen to it in the chorus. Just listen to fucking bass. He's doing like what Randy Rhoads is doing on guitar. He's doing that kind of shit on bass. It's amazing. Amazing bass work. Love Little Dolls. Tonight, this is a kind of ballad that Ozzy can kind of pull off because it's kind of a smoky, nocturnal rock and roll ballad. Those kind of ballads Ozzy can pull off. You know, it's not too sentimental. It's more like just out at the rainbow at night, you know, after midnight, and you're getting a little wistful, maybe thinking about a lady that used to hang out with you at the rainbow. It's that kind of vibe. That's the feeling I get. When I listen to Tonight, it makes me think about hanging around, having a good time at the rainbow, but there's an undercurrent of sadness. You know, it's bittersweet. It's bittersweet rock and roll night out. And Ozzy pulls it off. Beautiful song. I love Tonight. S-A-T-O. Sato. There's a lot of debate on what those initials stand for. Some people think it's Sharon's initials and Ozzy's ex-wife, Ozzy's wife before her. I don't know. I don't care. All I know is it's a rockin' tune and I like it. Good song. And then it closes with Diary of a Madman, a masterpiece. Now this gets right what I think that Revelation Mother Earth song got wrong. Now this is an epic that to me does not feel try hard. It feels just like they are grasping the epicness and making it work. The song is a musical rock and roll heavy metal odyssey. I love Diary of a Madman. It's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece. It's a goddamn masterpiece on a masterpiece album. Great way to end this perfect album. And oh man, Randy solos, it's fucking next level. There's a reason why this man is a legend. He is a legend. But this fucking album, I like it better than the last two albums he did with Sabbath, Never Say Die and Technical Ecstasy. I would put it above that. I wouldn't put it above the first 6 Sabbath albums or the first 2 with Dio, but I would give it an edge on everything else that Sabbath ever did, and it's better than any other solo Ozzy album is. And as much as I love Dio, I think it's better than anything Dio did solo as well. I think Dio had a more consistent solo career, if we're counting Dio the band as a solo career, and it really is. I think Dio's output was more consistent than Ozzy's output, but he doesn't have one album as great as Diary of a Madman, in my opinion. So there you go. So that's what I think about Diary of a Madman, which is the album that I gushed all over. It's a gushorama. And I'm not going to talk about the other albums quite as much. Now, it came out a couple years later, but Tribute was recorded from this tour before Randy tragically died. And that is a great album. However, in recent years, it has been supplemented by this other album. And I know Ralph Vieira, awesome man, legend, Black Sabbath fan, his favorite band. So, of course, he's talked all about this. And me and him, we're on a lot of same pages here. And we're on the same page with this album that he thinks Ozzy Live is better than Tribute. Ozzy Live is this live bonus disc that came with that 30th anniversary edition of Diary of a Madman that I was talking about. And it's Tribute. It's the same set list. It's from the same tour, but it's a different show. And it's stronger. It's a stronger performance. It's an even better performance than on Tribute, and the sound quality is better. It sounds amazing. Ozzy Live became the new Tribute for me. Like, that became the definitive Ozzy Randy Rhoads live album from the early 80s. Although, that is my second favorite Ozzy Live album from the 80s. Yes, as great as that is, I have to say, Speak of the Devil from 1982. This is my favorite live album that Ozzy did in the 80s. Yes, I like it even better than Ozzy Live in Tribute with Randy. No disrespect to Randy, but there's just something about Speak of the Devil that just really speaks to me. Okay, this album, fucking crazy history with this album. And I think it's a hard album to get by these days. I got a remaster from I think the mid-90s. Sounds great, from 1995, I think it was, mid-90s. I was very lucky to get. I got it as an import. So this album was essentially slapped together really quick after Randy's death, because Black Sabbath with Dio was releasing Live Evil. They knew that they were working on their live album, and they were very competitive with Black Sabbath at the time. The Sharon Ozzy camp was very competitive with Black Sabbath. So they wanted to quickly put out another album to compete with Black Sabbath's Live Evil. And also to kind of take ownership of these songs, like to make the Black Sabbath standards, to make them like Ozzy standards. Like these are his songs too. So it was an album created really for cynical reasons. So, and slapped together really quick with a band that had not played with Ozzy, because the original band, the band of Randy, even when Randy was alive, they started talking about doing this album, and they weren't going to do it. Randy did not want to do it. So even if Randy had lived, he was going to leave the Ozzy band. This was a breaking point for him, because Ozzy was pissed off that Randy didn't want to do this Black Sabbath live album. It was like he was thinking like, hey kid, I kind of broke you into the business here in a big way, and you're pushing back on me. And I could kind of understand his side of it to a degree. Like, I feel like from what I heard, he was drinking a lot and was not perhaps conveying his disappointment with Randy in the healthiest way, let's just say. But I can kind of understand why he might feel like, hey kid, I helped you out here, help me out. And Randy was young and had his opinions and was like, no, that's a creative step backwards for me. I don't want to just be a guy playing songs from your old band. I want to move forward with my guitar playing. So he pushed back on Ozzy. So even if Randy had survived, he wouldn't have been on this album, probably wouldn't have continued to play with Ozzy. He would have split and probably formed his own band. He would have went in a different direction. And as a result, there was a guitar void, and he quickly had to grab this other guitarist, and he listened to some demos, and he liked this guitar player, Brad Gillis. Brad Gillis, it's the only time he plays with Ozzy is on this album. He would go on to be the guitarist for Night Ranger. Night Ranger, cool band from the 80s. Brad Gillis does amazing guitar work on this. It's too bad that he didn't continue with Ozzy, because I think they would have done some good stuff together. He did a great job. And apparently, Brad Gillis wasn't even that big of a Sabbath fan. He literally had a buddy of his give him all the Black Sabbath, Ozzy era Black Sabbath albums right before he flew out to New York to record this with Ozzy. They set up 2 gigs in New York at the Ritz in New York, 2 shows in front of a crowd, and then they were going to record some songs without a crowd at the venue, just so they would have enough stuff to grab to use for the live album. So Brad Gillis, this guy, he does a crash course. He essentially does crash course cramming before he has to do this test. He does this crash course thing where he just listens to these albums for the first time for a couple days. And it's so fucking impressive when you hear this album. It's like, this guy fucking nailed it. But plus, what's great about it, and maybe because he wasn't a big Sabbath guy, and because he put this together so quick, the guitar work in these songs, it's very different. It doesn't sound like 70s Sabbath. This totally sounds like 80s Ozzy doing Sabbath songs. It sounds like 80s metal versions of the Sabbath songs. They have a really fresh quality to it. I really love these versions. I don't think they're better than the Sabbath originals, but I love them, and I love the fact that they sound different and that they have their own energy and life to it. And it kicks off with Symptom of the Universe, goes into my very favorite Black Sabbath song, Snowblind. It's a great set list. I love it. NIB kicks ass, Sweet Leaf, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, Never Say Die. It's a great set list. I just love the vibe of this album, and I like it better than Live Evil. So I think that they owned Black Sabbath. And I think Live Evil is a good album. But to me, there's so much more energy and personality to this album. It's just like a fun Black Sabbath party. A Black Sabbath party with Ozzy playing with a bunch of musicians that are really talented, and they're just knocking it out. And I love it. I love Speak of the Devil. Great album, and my favorite live Ozzy album. Then we get to 1983, Bark at the Moon, the ultimate Halloween album. Although all these Ozzy albums are kind of good for Halloween. But Bark at the Moon, good album. Not great. Sorry if you think it's a great album. I just think it's a good album. I like it a lot. It is my least favorite from the 80s. That might be controversial that I like the subsequent album more than this one, because I think the subsequent album, is what most people say is the weakest one from the 80s. But I think this is the weakest album from the 80s. But I still like it a lot. And I still think it's a really good album, and it has some songs that I love. And my second favorite Ozzy song ever is on this album. And it's a really good album with some great songs. There's a few songs that I think aren't so great, which bring it down a bit. But not bad. I like all his 80s solo stuff. So I like this album too. So I'm not dissing on this album. It's just one of them's got to be my least favorite. And it's this one. It's this one. All right? Bark at the Moon kicks off like a motherfucker, though. Bark at the Moon, one of the greatest Ozzy songs ever. Never gets old. I saw my buddy, Michael Hampton. He did a great version of this live a few weeks ago at the Whiskey. So props to you, Michael Hampton. Fucking awesome song. And let's talk about Jake E. Lee, man. That guy's great. He's an awesome guitarist. Awesome. Randy's the top one. I don't know. I bounce between Zakk and Jake. You know, it depends. Right now, I'm feeling like Jake. I gotta tell you, I feel like he's the second best that played with Ozzy. As awesome as Zakk is, I mean, just that solo alone, the solo at the end, A Bark at the Moon, fucking hell. Man, that is some badass shit. Badass shit. As sad as it was that, Randy was gone, Ozzy did not miss a beat. That guy's fucking merciless, him and Sharon. They want to keep making fucking money. So they don't miss a beat. They grab another awesome guitarist. It's like AC/DC. After Bon Scott, they get Brian Johnson within months, and they do fucking Back in Black. They don't miss a beat either. They just keep on rocking. And what else can you do? They're like, oh, it's too bad that person's dead. Okay, who's replacing him? Fucking ASAP. We got fucking money to make. It's like the fucking mafia. This is like fucking Godfather shit. But you know what? What are you going to do? You going to sit around and fucking cry? No, you got to go out and keep rocking. Because what else can you do? We're all going to be dead in the end anyway. Sorry. Don't want to bring you down. Don't want to bring you down on the Halloween special. But, yeah, you're going to die. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm not telling you what happens afterwards. All I know, it ain't going to be sitting around getting drunk and listening to Ozzy albums. And that's pretty tragic when you think about it. But all I know is we're all going to die. And, as sad as it is, all you can do when one of us dies and drops fucking like a fly is just keep on marching, because that's all we can do. That's all we can do. So that's what these merciless British rockers know. They know that all we can do is just keep on marching, and we just got to find a replacement real quick, and then just kick ass, because that's the best thing you can do. And that's what Ozzy did. He grabbed Jake E. Lee, fucking kicked ass, and they did Bark at the Moon, Ozzy classic. One of his greatest songs, one of the greatest Halloween heavy metal songs ever. Always goes on my fucking Halloween playlist. How could you not like? If you don't like Bark at the Moon, you don't have a fucking soul. And you don't have balls. You don't have either. Even ladies. Ladies can have balls too. As you know from AC/DC's She's Got Balls. So that's not me being a sexist. That's just me being an awesome guy that recognizes that we need balls and soul to get through life. And that's what this fucking album does, man. Gets through life. Unfortunately, there's a few songs that aren't so hot, so it's my least favorite. There's one major ball drop, if we're getting back to the topic of balls. One ball got dropped on this album with the song placement with the second song. They made it this song, You're No Different. I don't actually mind this song. I kind of like it. I don't mind the synths in this song. Some of the songs, I do mind the synths. Some of the songs, I don't. I think this is one of the songs where the synths work. It has a kind of dark, kind of 80s horror movie vibe, which I love. I love that sound. It's like Goblin soundtrack to this movie. Tenebrae. Awesome Italian slasher film, giallo film from the early 80s. If you haven't seen it, you're fucking missing out. See some Tenebrae. Awesome synthy soundtrack from the prog rock band Goblin. They did like prog rock stuff in the 70s, and then in the 80s they got more synthy. Awesome stuff. And, like John Carpenter soundtracks. I love that shit. I love a nice 80s synth. It's like why I love like a Judas Priest song like Out in the Cold. Those are the kind of synths I like when it has a kind of a dark kind of 80s horror movie vibe, And I think You're No Different has a little of that quality, and it's a cool song. I like it. I like the song. It just should not be the fucking second song on the album. That's my problem with it. It's after Bark at the Moon, you don't want a kind of mid-tempo kind of synthy pop rock song. What should have been the second song is the fourth track, Rock and Roll Rebel. Rock and Roll Rebel, now that's the crazy train or flying high on this album. That's the mid-tempo balls out rock and roll party song that should have came on right after Bark at the Moon. It's really obvious. I don't know why the fuck this did not happen. Because you listen to it and you're like, Rock and Roll Rebel. Rock and Roll Rebel should be the second song on this album. It would have been perfect. And then they could have done You're No Different. And then Now You See It, Now You Don't. Like, that to me should have been the first side. That's how they should have done it. Rock and Roll Rebel, awesome song. Not as awesome as Crazy Train and Flying High Again, but still an awesome song. Awesome party song. Plays up the whole myth about Ozzy, that he's this bad boy that eats bats and pisses on the Alamo. He's a fucking rock and roll rebel. I love that song. Great song. Now You See It, Now You Don't. Good rocker. Good solid killer filler song. Like it. Center of Eternity. I dig that song too. A little weird. A little like prog metal in spots. I dig it. It's kind of sci-fi, kind of horror sounding to it. I dig it. So Tired. All right. If you know me, you know I like lots of kinds of music. And I don't mind a schmaltzy ballad, but this is a little like Goodbye to Romance, although it's more Beatle-esque and has like orchestra and stuff on it. I guess what I'm saying is I feel like Alice Cooper could have pulled this song off, because Alice Cooper could do a Beatle-esque schmaltzy kind of ballad song, because I think he had a really nice crooning voice for that kind of stuff. Again, I think Ozzy doesn't really sing a ballad like this that well. That's my biggest issue with the song. It's a pretty song, and I don't mind that he's doing a pretty song. I just don't think Ozzy pulls off songs like this. I think he only does ballads well when they're kind of dark or bittersweet or atmospheric. But when they're this sentimental, it sounds fake to me. It just doesn't work. Yeah, I know he loves the Beatles, but I don't know. It just doesn't work for me. So not a horrible song, but doesn't work for me and does drag the album down. But the worst song on the album is the next one, Slow Down. Just a kind of, it's an alright, it's like a decent enough rocker, but it has these really lame synthesizers. The synthesizer line in the chorus, that's just really corny and just does not fit the song, and yeah, not that good. But then, talk about synthesizers that do work. Fucking Waiting for Darkness. Awesome song. Awesome song. My favorite song on the album. And my second favorite Ozzy song, period. Yes, this is my second favorite Ozzy solo song he ever did, Waiting for Darkness. Man, talk about that Goblin John Carpenter vibe. Has that with the keyboards and that cool guitar lick that Jakey Lee's doing. Man, the atmosphere, it's epic. It's an epic song. 5 minutes, 16 seconds. It builds, it's rock, it's deep. It's another great Halloween song. My favorite waitress at the Rainbow back in the day was this woman named Ruby. Ruby was a really cool chick, and she loved this song. It was her favorite Ozzy song, and she used to play it whenever I was at the Rainbow. She made sure that this song got played, and because we both loved this song. We bonded over how much we loved Waiting for Darkness. So I always think of Ruby. I always think of the Rainbow. I always think of fucking Halloween. I think of partying. I think of the nighttime, which is the right time. I think of all these things when I hear Waiting for Darkness. It evokes a lot of emotions and feelings, and it's a fucking awesome song. Tell you, this album also has some good B-sides. I like Spiders and One Up the B-side, which I think both those songs are better than Slow Down and So Tired. In fact, I think this album would have been stronger. Yeah, I would actually, if that was how this album was released, this would probably be my second least favorite instead of my least favorite album from the 80s. But as it was released, I'd say it's my least favorite, but still a good album, has some great moments, has my second favorite Ozzy song of all time. Definitely not kicking it out of bed, even though it's my least favorite from the 80s. Then we get to 1986, The Ultimate Sin. Ooh, Ultimate Sin. I would say this is probably the most controversial album from the 80s, and a lot of people call it the hair metal album. I don't consider it hair metal. I know Ozzy looked really hair metal and really glam during this period, and it's a little poppier in spots, but this is still what I refer to as melodic metal. Mid-80s melodic metal, like Dokken, who is another band that looked glammy, but I don't consider glam metal. I consider them melodic metal. And kind of like Cinderella, their first album, Night Songs, I consider it melodic metal. Rat, I consider Rat melodic metal, and this is an album like that. I would say it was melodic metal, but Ozzy already had those leanings, even from the very first album, from Blizzard of Oz. I'd say he was making melodic metal. This album's a little less heavy and a little poppier, but it doesn't go as full tilt pop as Bark at the Moon did in spots. I think it's more consistently rocking, which is one of the reasons why I put this album above. I think there are some songs that are better on Bark at the Moon that are better than anything on this album, but I think this album's for the most part, a little more consistent. And there's really nothing I hate on it. There's just some songs that I think are just so-so. Yeah, I think it's a consistent mid-80s melodic metal album. Not great, but good. I like it. I think it's a good album. Not great again, good. It has the greatest album cover Ozzy ever did. Greatest Ozzy Osbourne album cover, easily. This fucking chick, too. Smoking. She appeared in the videos at the time. Kind of like that smoking hot blonde on the Rat album cover. Invasion of Your Privacy. I think that if I had to vote who the hottest 80s metal album cover girl is, I'd say it's that girl, the Rat Invasion of Your Privacy girl. And she appeared in the videos, for Lay It Down, like at that time period. But this Ultimate Sin chick, she's probably, I'd say she's the second hottest. She's really hot, and she appeared in the videos. Yeah, and it's a beautiful album cover. Look at that with the fucking, I don't know, is that like the nuclear bomb going off, I guess, in the background? And then you got Demon Ozzy there. He's like some kind of beast. And then the sexy Ultimate Sin chick, wearing the cool animal pattern tights, and her hair is flowing around, and it's a masterpiece. Look at that fucking album cover. I love it. And man, it's sexy. It's a sexy album cover. And it's a sexy album. Ultimate Sin, the title track, out of the gate. Awesome song. Awesome video. Awesome song. Love it. It's heavy, but catchy at the same time. Love that groove. Badass tune. Badass tune. This is fucking heavy metal. Fucking, you kids fucking listen to your fucking ooh black metal guys crying in the fucking snow. Fucking with band names that look like twigs thrown around. That ain't fucking heavy metal. That's fucking crying for attention. That's what that is. This is fucking heavy metal. Ultimate Sin, man. This is the real deal. Great track. Love it, love it, love it. Second track, Secret Loser. Love that song too. That's a badass tune. Great rockin' second track. Great melodic metal song. Very slick, but awesome. I love it. And I like the title, Secret Loser. It's kind of like being secretly cruel. Anyway, I love Secret Loser. Also, very great usage in the movie The Wraith, released the same year as this album, 1986. I'm going to recommend The Wraith as a great Halloween movie to watch if you haven't seen it ever. Man, does this movie fucking own. The Wraith, I love it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Charlie Sheen stars as he plays this, I don't want to give it away, but let's just say, well, it's about a bunch of kids. It's this weird town, like out in the desert, where it's pretty much all just teenagers living there, and like one cop played by Randy Quaid, who's awesome in the movie. Anyway, so there's these punk kids that are like led by Nick Cassavetes. He's the son of John Cassavetes, one of my favorite filmmakers, and Nick went on to become a filmmaker himself, and he's the main villain guy in it, and he does a good job. He's pretty good as the jerk guy that's leading this gang of, essentially they're like car pirates. They race people, and then they steal their car, and they cheat too, of course, because they're bad guys. So they cheat in the race, and then they force the other person to give the car to them, and they collect these cars. They got the gutter boy, he's part of the gang. But then there's this guy, this Wraith, which is like a ghost. This phantom driver comes around in a cool car and starts fucking with the bad guys, and starts racing them and killing them. And Sherilyn Finn's in it. Sherilyn Finn, who's smoking hot in this movie. I love Sherilyn Finn. I always loved her. She was one of my first crushes back when she played Audrey on Twin Peaks. And she's smoking in this movie. And it's a great movie. It's really weird and gonzo. And it's everything I love about like early to mid 80s films, where it's just kind of wonky and slapdash, but rock and roll. That's The Wraith. Slapdash, wonky, fucking phantom car racing movie. Awesome. Awesome. See The Wraith. Do yourself a favor. See The Wraith. And great soundtrack, some stuff from Lion, that metal band Lion that did music for Transformers the movie. Also a cool movie. The Secret Loser, they played during one of the first chase scenes in it, and it's great, kicks in. Also great use of Billy Idol's Rebel Yell, which is also used during one of the chase scenes. Great movie. Check out The Wraith. Anyway, back to this album. The Ultimate Sin. Love Secret Loser. Never Know Why. Third track. Alright. Kind of a filler song. It's alright. Thank God for the Bomb. Don't really like that song. Kind of annoys me a little bit. It's the only song I don't like on the album. Never Love Never. Never is my favorite song on the album. Fucking perfect, catchy as hell melodic metal song. To me, this should have been a single from the album. It's like a Dokken song, and you know I love a Dokken song. It's really catchy. Love the chorus. Love the guitar work. J.K. Lee's doing great guitar work throughout this album. Never is an awesome song. A very underrated song in the Ozzy solo catalog, in my opinion. Love Never, my favorite song from the album. Lightning Strikes, all right filler song. Not half as good as Lightning Strikes Again from the Dokken album Under Lock and Key, released a year before this. And I think it's fair to compare. It's fair to compare songs released within almost a year apart that both had the word lightning strikes in the title. I think it's fair comparison, and this does not measure up. Killer of Giants. I like this song, actually. I think it's a very moving and poignant ballad, and this is the kind of ballad that I think Ozzy pulls off because it's dark. It's a dark ballad, and I think it's about like the arms race, the nuclear arms race of the 80s. That seems to be a theme on this album. That's what I think anyway. If I'm wrong, tell me in the comments section, because I love to hear how I'm wrong sometimes. Because I don't hear it often, because usually I'm fucking right. Anyway, so Killer of Giants. Cool song, dark, soulful, poignant ballad. Ozzy pulls it off. I like it. Fool Like You, another filler track. It's alright. It's not bad. It's not great, just filler. Shot in the Dark, the big hit from the album. I love it. Shot in the Dark to me is fucking ear candy. Now this song, maybe you could call this glam metal. I'd call it more pop metal. It's full-fledged pop metal. Glam pop metal perfection is what it is. The vibe, the bass, Ozzy comes in with the swagger, the nighttime swagger. Love the video, the atmosphere, the song. It's sexy. It's a sexy song. That's what I love about 80s metal, is that there's a sensuality to it. A sensuality that is lacking in a lot of subsequent rock music once we get into the 90s. For the most part, there's some bands that did maintain some sensuality, but not as much as you heard in the 80s. This is some sexy shit. I love Shot in the Dark. You know, it's like, gives you that feeling of going out at night, and you're going to meet a sexy lady at a bar somewhere, and it's on, you know, and that's fucking rock and roll. And I love Shot in the Dark, one of my favorite Ozzy songs. I never get tired of it. And there you go. Yeah, it's not heavy metal, but it's fucking pop metal perfection. Love Shot in the Dark. And then we're going to get to the final album of the 80s, which kind of is the transition album from late 80s Ozzy into early 90s Ozzy. And it's the first one where Zakk Wylde plays on him. Very young at this time. Very young Zakk Wylde. If you see the clips, very fresh-faced. And, man, he was an amazing guitarist. And I bounce between him and J.K. Lee, who's the second best Ozzy guitarist. He's amazing on this album. Great guitar lines. And he did energize Ozzy. And this is an amazing album. And I haven't even said this album's title yet. It's No Rest for the Wicked, 1988. And this is, guess what? My second favorite Ozzy solo album. That's right. I like it even better than Blizzard of Oz. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Blizzard of Oz and Bark at the Moon have a couple songs that are better than any song on this album. But as a whole album, this is his most consistent album after Diary of a Madman, in my opinion. I love this album. It's a great album and easily my second favorite Ozzy solo album. And he never topped it. So this is the peak. You know, this is the peak after the peak of Diary of a Madman. He had two peaks. Diary of a Madman, and then this. And then after that, it's all slowly but surely downhill, in my opinion. But this is a great album, rocking. He kind of brings back, like, it's still catchy. There's still some melodic metal on this album, but it's definitely heavier than the last two albums. And he brings back some of the meat and some of the heaviness from Diary of a Madman, while also moving forward with a new guitarist, Zakk Wylde, that has his own sound, you know, and a sound that's kind of bridging him from the late 80s to the early 90s. And you hear it right out of the gate with Miracle Man. Love that song. Love that song. It's funny, for years, I always thought Ozzy was saying, no bullshit. No bullshit. And then I found out that he's saying, you're busted. You're busted. You're busted. It's still a cool lyric. It's a little cooler when I thought he was saying no bullshit. But anyway, amazing song. Amazing guitar work from Zakk. Love Miracle Man. Gets the fucking party going. Devil's Daughter, in parentheses, Holy War. Now, this is grammatically speaking a proper use of parentheses, all right? It's a proper use. Still don't like it though. I don't like parentheses in songs. I think it's stupid. Pick a song title already. Is it called Holy War or is it called Devil's Daughter? I think the song's clearly called Devil's Daughter. So just call it fucking Devil's Daughter. Who needs that fucking parentheses of Holy War? I don't know. It's the writer in me, but I don't like that shit. That fucking parentheses shit is clown shit. I don't like it. The song's called Devil's Daughter, alright? Anyway, and it's great. It's a great second track. Love the song. Kicks ass. Great, catchy fucking late 80s heavy metal song. Real heavy metal. I love it. And then number 3, real catchy song, Crazy Babies. Awesome song. Awesome. I believe this was the biggest hit from the album. Rock hit, heavy metal hit, whatever you judge it. I mean, I know it wasn't like on the top 40, top 10, because the top 40, top 10 is not cool enough to have fucking Crazy Babies be on it. Although it should be cooler, and this song should be a fucking classic hit song that every fucking teeny bopper sings. But teeny boppers like a lot of lame shit. I don't know. They were like listening to New Kids on the Block or something at this time. Instead of listening to Crazy Babies, which they should have, which would have made them cooler chicks that would have grown up to be sexier, cooler ladies if they listened to shit like this. You might think I'm talking nonsense now, but I ain't. I'm talking fucking science, because Crazy Babies is fucking scientifically awesome. Love that song. It's funky. I think they even kind of foreshadow a little early 90s grunge with a song like Crazy Babies. Like, maybe lyrically not so much, but musically, to me, this is a little like Alice in Chains, and it's before that. I feel like it brings in a little of that vibe that feels like something new, kind of fresh. Like him and Zakk are kind of pushing the sound of metal. The way the heaviness and catchiness works on Crazy Babies is kind of like early Alice in Chains or like Black Album era Metallica or like Countdown to Extinction Megadeth. I feel like it kind of sonically it kind of bridges into that, if you know what I'm saying. All right? Yeah, the song called Crazy Babies. But even I could kind of picture Alice in Chains doing a song called Crazy Babies, actually, especially on Facelift. So I just feel like this is an innovative song, and I think this is a very innovative album. I don't think enough people talk about it. I know a lot of metalheads do love this album, but it's a very innovative album that I think is important in terms of moving metal from the 80s into the early 90s. Also, I think Zakk Wylde's guitar playing was also somewhat influential to Dimebag, and Pantera. And I think Cowboys from Hell, I feel like there's a little bit of a connection sonically with Cowboys from Hell in this album. And again, this album was first. This is 1988. So I feel like this album really helped bridge heavy metal music from the late 80s to the early 90s. It doesn't get recognized enough in that sense, in the evolutionary sense, that this is an important step forward. In the same way that Ozzy and Randy helped move hard rock and heavy metal from the late 70s to the early 80s with Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, I feel like, again, him and Zakk kind of took hard rock and heavy metal to a new place from the late 80s to early 90s with this album. And I think not enough people recognize it. It's a very important album, and it's an awesome album. Anyway, so I love Crazy Babies, love the video, love the song. It's just fucking down and dirty. It's funky and heavy and rocking and catchy and sexy all at the same time. And I fucking love it when music does something all at the same time. Fucking awesome. Breaking All the Rules. Another awesome song. Love the song. Catchy melodic metal. I love catchy melodic metal. Fucking not hair metal, just fucking melodic metal. Breaking all the rules. And that's the way to live, baby. It's the way to live. It's more than music. It's a lifestyle. Bloodbath in Paradise. Awesome song. Heavy metal. Real heavy metal. Fucking about the Manson family. I love this song. It's heavy but really catchy at the same time. Great. That's what I love. And then my favorite song on the album. This is for the most part a heavier album. But my favorite song on it is probably the least heavy song on it, which is Fire in the Sky. Woo! Fire in the Sky. Easily my favorite song on the album. And I would say it breaks my top 10. It breaks my top 10 favorite Ozzy solo songs. Fire in the Sky. Majestic. Pageantry. It's synth driven. It has this great synth line. It builds, but the guitar works great. Ozzy sings it. I wouldn't call it a ballad, but it's kind of a mid-tempo, kind of dark, wistful pop song. That's what I'd call it. It's kind of a pop song. This song should have been released and been a big hit, in my opinion. And again, kind of foreshadows, even though it has a late 80s synthy pop quality to it, to me, it also foreshadows a little bit of early 90s grunge a little bit. You know, it's slow but catchy and dark. Slow, catchy, and dark. Well, that sounds like early 90s grunge to me. It's a magical song. Every time I hear Fire in the Sky, it evokes feelings. I think it's one of Ozzy's greatest songs. I love that song. Tattooed Dancer. I'd call this killer filler. Actually, the last 3 tracks are probably my last 3 favorite songs on the album, but they're not bad. They're all killer filler as far as I'm concerned. Tattooed Dancer, good rockin' song. Demon Alcohol. You're right. You shouldn't be drinking too much, kids. It's bad for you. It's poison. Poison you're putting into your body. But this is the thing. If you put just a little bit of poison in your body, it actually makes it stronger. It's like a vaccine. You know how a vaccine works? I'm going to explain it. You put a little bit of vaccine into your body. It's like you put in a little bit of the bad stuff in your body, and your body's like, oh, here's the bad stuff. I got to learn how to work with this shit. And then your body learns to work with it, for the most part. You know, most people, maybe there's a few people that don't take the vaccines, but a few people do, and their body works with it, and then your body's a little stronger. It's like the old saying, Nietzsche saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So you get a little bit of the sickness in you, and it makes you stronger. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is I'm not talking about vaccines and stuff. That was an analogy, because what I'm talking about is alcohol. Alcohol is a little bit of poison, and you put it in your body, and then your body's like, okay, now I can deal. Because, we breathe poison in all the time. We breathe in fucking pollution and all kinds of bullshit. We eat chemicals, and there's a lot of bad stuff that enters our bodies, because unless we're out there living off the grid and on a farm somewhere eating fucking organic eggs and chickens and what have you, and eating plants, unless we're just eating plants. If you live in a city, especially, I live in a city, if you live in a city, you're getting poison, and if you're part of modern society, you're getting poison put in your body all the fucking time. So you gotta toughen up your body a bit. Now, I'm not saying don't be healthy. I eat healthy food. I'm a healthy guy for the most part. But you can't be too healthy. If you're too healthy and you never put some poison in your body's going to get soft and weak. And then it's not going to be able to deal with the poison it gets. All right? So demon alcohol is sometimes necessary. That's my point. Hey, if you're someone that can't control your drinking and you're drinking too much poison and you're poisoning your body and you're going to die and you're destroying your life and all that shit, then yeah, fucking cut that shit out. It doesn't work for you. Stop drinking. Stop drinking. It doesn't work for you. It doesn't work for everyone. But if you're a person that can kind of handle your shit, and drink kind of consistently but responsibly, then I think a little bit of poison every day is good for you. It's like an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, I think a little bit of whiskey a day keeps the doctor away too, if you do it in moderation. All right? All right? All right. So there we go. That's my official statement on drinking alcohol. Demon Alcohol. It's a cool song. Like it. Hero. Probably the weakest track on the album. It's the last song. But not bad. Not bad. It works as a closing track, and it leaves me wanting more. So in my opinion, it does its job as the last track. It's a mid-tempo, kind of moody rocker, kind of a lesser Fire in the Sky, but it does its job. And when it's done, I want to listen to more Ozzy or go back and listen to this album again from the start. It works as a nice bookend to Miracle Man. And that's it for 80s Ozzy. But he ended on a fucking high note to me. No Rest for the Wicked is easily my second favorite Ozzy album. So there you go. Good job. Good job, Ozzy and Zakk. And that's it. This is Halloween time. There's going to be parties and whatever, and fucking carving jack-o'-lanterns and, watching scary movies. And it's the afternoon. I've been drinking after a night of drinking. And, I don't know, maybe I'm putting too much poison in my body. I should stop. I don't want to be like that fucking guy by the pool in that fucking Decline of Civilization. I don't want to be that guy. So I'm gonna sober up. I'm going to put some healthy food in my body. You got to rebuild. You put the poison in your body, and then you build yourself up again. You put some healthy shit in your body, and then you can resurrect. You rise like a phoenix. I'm constantly destroying myself and rebuilding myself every day these days. Literally. Let's just say I'm going through a lot of shit in my life, but I'm rebuilding myself every day and I'm rocking and rolling. And this goes back to my favorite Ozzy song, You Can't Kill Rock and Roll. That's the whole idea. What doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. And that's what's great about rock and roll. That's why it's the greatest music. Heavy metal, in my opinion, is one of the greatest subgenres of rock and roll. That's right. I think rock and roll is the top of the pyramid. And then we have all these subdivisions. You know, people, a lot of headbangers, they start with heavy metal at the top and then they break that shit up. There's fractions underneath heavy metal, but to me, heavy metal is a fraction underneath rock and roll. All right? And rock and roll could spread out to hard rock, to just rock, prog rock, metal, grunge, punk, and then you got subdivisions under those subdivisions of your fucking rock and roll pyramid. But it's rock and roll. Billy Joel was fucking right. It's all rock and roll. That's the top. It's a spirit, man. White people and black people coming together and doing awesome music and creating awesome music and doing something that was pushing back on the fucking status quo, you know? And that's what rock and roll's about, man. It's life-affirming music, you know? And that's what it's about. And so that's why when you got like Ozzy Osbourne singing You Can't Kill Rock and Roll, it means something, man. It means something because it's more than this music. It is a lifestyle. It's about embracing life as we live it because we're going to die, but you got to embrace life while we have it. And that's what I love about Halloween time because it's when life and death is like, you know, like they're having a fun dance together. You know, we're looking at skeletons and ghosts and we're embracing the fact that we're going to die one day, but hey, this is life and let's make it awesome. Let's get into it. Let's lean into that shit. Let's lean into life because, you know, 30, 40, 50, no matter how old you are, one day you're not going to be around. So you might as well enjoy it while you're here. Fucking Ozzy Osbourne, all the fucking crazy shit he did, all the poison he put in his body, and he's still standing. He's still alive. He's not going to be alive forever. It's going to be that day when he dies. But man, that guy lived so much. When he's gone, there's not going to be any regrets from Ozzy Osbourne. I'll tell you that. That guy did exactly what he wanted to do every fucking second he lived. Maybe a few times. Maybe there were a few times with Sharon pushing to do some shit he wasn't crazy about. But for the most part, he always did what he wanted to do. I consider Ozzy Osbourne the Frank Sinatra of heavy metal. He really is when you think about it. He does things his way for the most part, and even though I don't like his fucking stuff after No More Tears, I always respect Ozzy. You know, if Ozzy wants to live out his like last 30 or 40 years of his life just doing what Sharon wants and doing lesser records, whatever. That guy did enough. Like, he already did enough. He did enough with Black Sabbath, and in the 80s, he did enough that, man, he's a fucking treasure. He's a fucking cultural treasure, and a totally unique person. No one really ever sang like Ozzy before him. They never did. He was a totally unique kind of singer, and I love Ozzy Osbourne. So that's what I'm drunkenly talking about in the afternoon, is that Ozzy Osbourne is one of the greatest singers and one of the greatest entertainers and one of the greatest pop culture figures of the late 20th century. And you gotta recognize. And fucking Ozzy Osbourne, he's one of the fucking founders of heavy metal. Heavy metal, which is one of the greatest subgenres of rock and roll. And Ozzy Osbourne would tell you that too, just like with his old friend Lemmy. Lemmy would say, it's all fucking rock and roll. And you know what? You can't kill rock and roll. Happy Halloween. Happy rock and roll. I'm out.